Hello, Jivas! It's your friendly neighborhood pop culture princess coming at ya with yet another Percy Jackson book talk. And this time, I want to do things a little differently. So I wanted to reread the original 5 books because I felt like I have not done that in forever. And I also have goldfish memory, so I had forgotten a whole bunch of details in the books. So I wanted to brush up on my Percy Jackson lore and also see for myself how season 1 of the show was different from the book. And hopefully I can publish this video tomorrow on time for the 20th anniversary of The Lightning Thief. So yeah, perfect timing for making this video. maybe I should have done it a little earlier. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. So the book follows a 12-year-old boy named Percy Jackson, who is considered a troubled kid by most people. He has always been different, and he has dyslexia and ADHD and sees and hears things other people don't. So all his life he's been considered psychologically disturbed by his peers and teachers. But the truth is that he is a half-blood. So half-bloods or demigods are children sired by a Greek god and a human. In Percy's case, his dad is an Olympian and his mom is mortal, a regular human being. Demigods like Percy don't have it easy. They're hardwired for battle and hence have trouble navigating normal mortal life and are diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The older demigods grow, the more monsters they attract. And if a demigod is really powerful, like they're a child of the big 3 Olympian gods, Zeus, Poseidon, or Hades, they're in huge trouble. Their scent is really strong and really attractive, so it draws a lot more monsters to them than other less powerful demigods. Percy's first encounter with the monster starts off the book, where he is attacked by one of Hades' Furies on a school trip to the Met. Percy does kill her by sheer luck, but he is left incredibly confused as to what happened and spends the rest of the school year trying to ask people if they ever saw her or what happened at the trip. Mortals don't really perceive anything related to the mythological world as it is because the mist conceals it from them. They only see what they can wrap their heads around. So like a sword might appear like a gun, etc. So Percy finishes the school year, goes back home, and his mom takes him to the cabin they have always been going to over the summer holidays ever since he was a baby. And very early in the morning, the day after they reach there, Percy wakes up to his best friend from school waking him up as he was being chased by a monster, the Minotaur. So Percy had ditched this guy, Grover, on the previous day while they were on their way back home from school, as he was acting all weird and saying he had to protect Percy but wasn't telling him from what he needed protection. So they take their car to Camp Half-Blood, which is a safe haven for demigods and a place they can train to fight monsters. Percy is still having trouble wrapping his head around everything and the fact that his best friend isn't even a human being but a satyr, that are creatures that appear human but are a lot like goats and have hind legs and hooves instead of human legs and feet, and also have horns, and they're basically nature spirits and not really human beings. So Percy has to fight the Minotaur in order to kill it and get into camp. Percy does kill it, but not before it kills his mom. But Percy does make it across the border to camp and passes out. Percy gains consciousness 2 days later at Camp Half-Blood and is instantly having information overload and has a hard time processing that he's a half-blood, his mom is gone. The Greek gods and monsters, what he believed was just myths, are very much alive, and Mount Olympus, currently on the 600th floor of the Empire State Building, is still around as well. The gods and Olympus shift with the center of the modern civilization and are presently in America because the present center of modern civilization is the United States of America. The camp director of Camp Half-Blood is the Greek god Dionysus, and his old Latin teacher from his most recent school, Yancy Academy, was Chiron, the centaur in disguise. The camp, by the way, is so gorgeous and so stunning, and Percy is in awe of how beautiful the Long Island Valley is. There's a lake and strawberry fields, and the Long Island Sound is also glittering in the distance. It's just beautiful. It's breathtaking. But Percy is obviously really bummed about his mom not being there and being dead, basically, according to him. The camp has 12 cabins arranged in a Greek omega shape dedicated to the Olympian gods, and all newcomers whose godly parent is unknown stay with the Hermes cabin, which is cabin 11. Demigods are also plagued with nightmares about gods and monsters that act as portals that teleport them to other places, other times, and also are a way of communication between gods and demigods. Gods often appear in the dreams of demigods to talk to them, to warn them, to threaten them. So Percy keeps dreaming about a fight between at one time two animals, a eagle and a horse, and then two people in old Greek outfits. And then who he later comes to know are Zeus and Poseidon on the brink of a civil war because Zeus's master bolt was stolen and he blames Poseidon for it. Percy gets claimed by Poseidon very soon after arriving at camp, right after a capture the flag game where the entire camp had just witnessed the way his severe wounds had been healed by the water of the creek. And Percy is kind of a mistake. He is kind of separated out, obviously, because he goes to his own cabin, the Poseidon cabin, and there are no other campers. There are no other campers because after the Second World War, Hades, Zeus, and Poseidon, the big three Olympian gods, had taken an oath not to sire any more children because it's just extremely dangerous and they always get into huge troubles and become the epicenter of massive wars. So yeah, they had taken that oath, and Zeus had broken that oath and sired a daughter named Thalia. We come to know that she was about to make it to camp. Grover was the one who found her. She, along with Annabeth and Luke, two more campers, had almost made it to camp, but they were being chased by a lot of monsters, and in order to save her friends, Luke and Annabeth, Thalia takes her last stand at Camp Half-Blood Hill and sacrifices her life, and in her last moments, she gets turned into a pine tree by her father Zeus. So yeah, basically the demigods of the big three are extremely powerful, and Percy is Poseidon breaking the oaths that him and his brothers had taken. And yeah, so it means major, huge consequences. So Percy is then sent on a very high-stakes quest to retrieve Zeus's bolt and clear Poseidon's name. This is the prophecy he received. You shall travel west and face the god who has turned. You shall seek what was stolen and see it safely returned. You shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend, and you shall fail to say what matters most in the end. So this book follows a trio consisting of this completely clueless 12-year-old boy, his satyr friend Grover, and another demigod camper named Annabeth, a daughter of Athena, as they travel to LA from New York via bus, train, car, truck, foot, basically everything, fighting monsters like the Furies, Medusa, Echidna, and the Chimera, blowtorching a national monument, retrieving a shield for Ares from an abandoned water park while being broadcasted live to Olympus as they ride the thrill ride of love, losing 5 days of their quest in the Lotus Hotel and Casino playing games, almost getting stretched to death by the monster Procrustes. I'm not sure if that's how his name is pronounced. Please forgive me. Narrowly avoiding being dog food for Cerberus, the guard dog. Also successfully avoiding plummeting into Tartarus and being blasted to smithereens by three gods, Ares, Hades, and Zeus. That was the story in a nutshell, basically. So Luke, the demigod who taught Percy how to sword fight and was the cabin counselor at the Hermes cabin, had stolen Zeus's master bolt and Hades' helm of darkness during the winter solstice and had escaped, but was caught by Ares, who had been sent by Zeus to find the thief. Luke was working for the Titan Lord Kronos, the father of Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, who had been chopped into pieces and cast into the deepest pit of the underworld, Tartarus. So Kronos was stirring and wanted to rule the world once again. So he had gotten Luke, a demigod who had had enough of the Olympians' bullshit and wanted revenge. When Ares intercepted Luke, Kronos told Luke to tell Ares to keep the weapons until another hero arrived to deliver Zeus's bolt to Hades, and tell Poseidon to blame Hades when Zeus accused him of the theft of his bolt, thus triggering a three-way war between the three most powerful Olympians. Ares, being the god of the war, loved the idea of his family fighting each other and was also being manipulated by Kronos. So Ares had given Percy a bag containing everything they would require on the journey from Denver to LA in exchange for retrieving his shield from the water park. The bag, unbeknownst to Percy, was the sheath of the Master Bolt in disguise, and Ares had tinkered with the magic of the bolt for it to only appear in its sheath, which is Percy's bag, once they reached the underworld. Hades thought that they had barged in there with the bolt to bargain for Percy's mom, who was still alive and was being held hostage. But the demigods had only realized that they had the bolt with them all this time when Hades told Percy to open his bag, when Hades pointed it out to him. So they quickly caught on to what happened and got the hell out of there before Hades smashed them into bits. They confronted Ares. Percy battled him and won and recovered Hades' helmet, which the Furies carried back to him. Percy is able to deliver the bolt to Zeus on time and stops the war between Zeus and Poseidon as well. He tells them that it was all Kronos' doing and that Kronos is stirring and wants to come back. Percy has a sweet moment with his father where he receives praise for being a true hero and a true son of the sea god. And Poseidon tells him that he's proud of him. But he does regret Percy being born, because being a demigod means having a hero's fate, and a hero's fate is always tragic. Percy gets back home and sees that his mom is back all right. And his stepdad, ugly Gabe, his name is literally Gabe Ugliano, and he is smelly and he's ugly. And he finds out that his stepdad basically abuses his mom physically. So Percy wants to finish him off right then and there. He wants to get rid of smelly Gabe right then and there by petrifying him with Medusa's head. But Sally holds him back and tells him that she needs to fight her battles herself, alone, and she will find the courage to get rid of him herself. So Percy goes back to camp and his mom writes him a letter saying his stepdad mysteriously disappeared, and on a completely unrelated note, she sold her very first sculpture to an art gallery who loved it so much that they paid her a massive amount for it. Percy spends the summer at camp and thinks about the prophecy and realizes that the last two lines didn't quite make sense and also had not come true. He was not betrayed by somebody who called him a friend, and what was it that he had failed to save? He had failed to prevent the war between Hades, Zeus, and Poseidon, and he had also saved his mom. So what was it? What was it that the last two lines of the prophecy were indicating? But on the last day of summer, they do come true. The last two lines do come true. Luke reveals his intentions, and it is here that Percy finds out that it was Luke who was the thief, and it was him who gave the flying shoes that were meant for Percy and were supposed to take him and the backpack carrying Zeus's bolt right to Tartarus. So this was obviously not something that Ares knew. Ares was just thinking of a war between Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus, but he did not know that the point of the bolt appearing in Percy's bag when he was in Tartarus was that he would be able to deliver it to Kronos. So that was Luke's grand plan all along, that he gave Percy flying shoes which were enchanted, and as soon as they entered the underworld, Grover, who happened to be wearing the shoes, started skidding right along and started flying, and he almost fell into Tartarus. But yeah, they were meant for Percy, and if Percy had been wearing them, he would have fallen into Tartarus, and the Master Bolt would have gone right into the hands of Kronos. So the Nereid, who gave Percy a means of escaping Hades' realm once they entered, had told him not to trust the gifts, which he had later realized referred to the backpack given by Hades, but that was just one gift. Gifts, plural, also refer to the enchanted shoes, which thankfully Percy was not wearing. But Grover also does not fall into Tartarus because of his hooves. The shoes were not a good fit and they fell off automatically by themselves. Anyhow, the last two lines of the prophecy do come true as well, and Percy is betrayed by one who calls him a friend, along with failing to say what matters most in the end, i.e. Luke from turning over to the dark side and the war between the gods and the Titans. Percy, quote-unquote, failed to save the war from happening, prevent the war from happening. So these are like some of the differences that I noticed between the show and the book. In the show, he chooses Grover and Annabeth himself for the quest. Here, they volunteer themselves. Annabeth also gets drenched in the toilet water when Clarisse and cronies are doused, and the Fury does not follow them to Medusa's lair here, and they are not attacked by the Chimera on the train in the book. Grover and Annabeth don't even know of it. It attacks Percy when Percy is left alone at the top due to the elevator being full. And Annabeth and Grover had already taken the previous elevator down. So, yeah. Grover also accompanies them to Waterland in the book, and the entire thrill ride of love scene is completely different in the book and in the show. Percy saves Annabeth from spiders by filling the pool with water and wheeling the boat across the tunnel. And they jump out of the boat to avoid crashing into the closed gates. And Grover saves them from crashing into solid tarmac by using his flying shoes to pick them up mid-air. I also don't think Percy was attacked by the Hellhound in the series like he was in the book. He was just claimed by Poseidon after his confrontation with Clarisse while he was still like in the creek. They also Iris message Luke in Denver at a DIY car wash in the book instead of in the truck to LA like they did in the show. They take the train to Denver and meet Ares at the diner in Denver instead of him finding them by the road walking. They also walked in with a plan to defeat Krusty in the show, but they were caught off guard by him in the book, and Percy improvised to save Annabeth and Grover from being stretched to death by the waterbeds. The entrance to the underworld was also through Krusty's office in the show, but in the book it was through DOA Studios. But they did find the address and the map to DOA Studios in Krusty's office. The Lotus Casino scene was also completely different in the book and in the show as well. I think the show actually made more sense and felt more cohesive because it was able to establish plot points that were implicit rather than explicit in the earlier books and only became overt as the books progressed. So the series making the dysfunctional family thing a whole explicit plot point, with Athena abandoning Annabeth when they needed sanctuary from Echidna and the Chimera, as well as the confrontation with Hephaestus, where Annabeth makes very solid points and highlights how with the gods it's all eat or be eaten, it's all about pride and glory, to the point that they are willing to backstab their own family. But Percy is not like that. He's brave and kind, and he will go to any extent to help people and to save people instead of finding the first chance to sacrifice someone and save himself. So that was very neat and I really liked that. I really loved the show, and I did not notice this myself, but my sister pointed out that it was very dark and serious right off the bat instead of giving us a taste of classic, sassy, funny Percy narration. And I was like, she's right. But when I read the book myself, like reread it recently, I realized that we don't get to see characteristic Percy first-person narrative that we have come to love so much in this book. We actually don't get to see him consistently making jokes and being sassy till chapter 14 of Sea of Monsters, which is the second book. Then too, in the third book, again, the story and the narrative is very serious up until chapter 14 or 15 of the book. Even though the last few chapters are the climax of the story and like where stuff gets really serious, they were still the chapters that were consistently funny with jokes woven into every bit of those chapters and every bit of that part of the story. So the Percy narration that we know and love is not in the first book. There are jokes, but like the overall narration style is simply not funny and sassy. It's like pretty dang serious, and that's only natural. Like Percy is a 12-year-old boy who thought he was like more or less like a normal human kid, and obviously had some challenges, but more or less he just thought of himself as a human. And now like he is constantly bombarded with information. He's like, oh, you're a half-blood, and you're a half-blood of one of the most powerful Olympian gods, and you were also not supposed to exist, so you're also kind of a mistake, and you are going to bring about a lot of destruction. You are going to make or break the Western civilization. And the poor guy didn't even sign up for any of this. Like, he simply does not have the headspace to be consistently funny and provide comedic relief like he does in subsequent books. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. And happy 20th anniversary to the Lightning Thief. Thank you for watching.